Welcome to Taking Stock. I'm Amanda Lang. Coming up on the show, a closer look at innovation in Canada. Why we aren't quite getting it right. Some of the ingredients that might spur businesses to act, and the power of protecting Canadian ideas, how intellectual property could hold the key. Plus, do we need to do a better job of creating uniquely Canadian products? There is a model for that. That's all ahead. But first, Canada has an innovation gap that is costing us in untold wealth generation. So the federal government has created a new organization to try to help. Here's a look by the numbers. Canada doesn't lack ideas or spending on them. We're the world leader in spending on research at educational institutions at 0.72% of GDP in 2020. That compares with 0.47% in France, 0.59% in Germany, and a measly 0.39% in the United States. But if we have ideas, businesses don't invest in them. Business spending on R&D in Canada is sorely lacking. In 2020, it was less than 1% of GDP. Compare that to 1.6% in France and 2.6% in the United States. That underinvestment hurts our productivity, so our worker output is now worth just 75% of the same work done in the U.S., a number that was 90% in 1980. That also hurts output per hour. For every dollar invested in Canada, our businesses see 75% of the return on investment of a similar purchase in the U.S. To help spur businesses to do better, the new federal Canadian Innovation Corporation will spend $2.6 billion over 4 years to support research and development efforts. Funding could range from $50,000 to $5 million per project, but with a maximum contribution of $20 million. For all of our good ideas, Canada doesn't do as well on turning them into thriving businesses, and too often Canadian startups find success and financing in the U.S. and elsewhere. How can we do better? Francois Philippe is Canada's Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. It's your job to help us do better. Thanks for being here, Minister.
Indeed. Thanks for having me.
What is the answer? This is not a new problem.
No.
We do have this issue in Canada. What do you think are the things you want to put in place that help set the stage for better growth here?
Sure. Well, it's kind of mission innovation. That's why we've invested in sectors, I think, that would drive innovation further. Think about the battery ecosystem. Think about electric vehicle. Think about semiconductors. You may have seen even in the speech of President Biden, I was so pleased that he mentioned, these corridors. What I've been trying is to insert Canadian industry into the strategic supply chain. In addition to that, I think there's a role for government. That's why we created the Canadian Innovation Corporation, because we've listened to people, and they were saying there's a gap between the 2 to 20 million kind of phase, where you have a great idea, but you want to transform that into a product or service. Thinking also about strategic procurement. The thing like we did with Moderna, this was like a revolution in Ottawa to say, how can we do things, not just focusing on price, but value. So I think it is a number of things like making sure we're there with support financially, making sure we're opening markets for our companies, making sure we find them customers, because, oftentimes I hear from CEOs, they said, Minister, we don't want a grant, we want a customer. Can the government of Canada be that first customer when you have the innovation and the new services? So it's a number of things we're trying to do, because you're right. If we keep doing what we've been doing, we've not been that successful. So that's why we shook the tree, tried to look at different things. And certainly now I think we have more the means of our ambitions now. And that's what's driving me to make sure we change the dynamic in Canada.
So that is a big change, focused policy on kind of creating these sort of winning categories. One thing you hear, and it sounds kind of boring, but it's really important, is too much regulation, too much red tape, too slow moving. What can, at the federal level, and I know that happens at other levels of government too, so it's not all on you, but how do we speed things up so that people who do want to start a business can do it more easily?
Well, we always have to try to do things better. But I say when you compete and you talk to global CEO, they think that Canada is pretty good. I must say, when I talk to CEOs around the world, and we've attracted significant investments where we're competing. And trust me, they were looking at different jurisdictions. So on one end, we need to fix a number of things, like you said, as a federal state. It's the same thing with my friends in the United States. When I go to Washington, they say, well, we need to do, faster permitting. But on the other end, we all know that this is at the state, in their case, in our case, provinces and municipal authorities. So it's kind of working together, having better processes, and I think also having the technology of the 21st century to try to speed some of these things that we need to do right. Because one thing that I hear from global CEO is that what they like is stability and predictability in the process. You know, they can manage if they know the time frame of that and predictability. So there's value in the Canadian system, and I think we need to build on that. But certainly, this is something which is top of mind because if we want to continue, you see, there's a big global shift. You know, these supply chain which are becoming more regional, more emphasis on resiliency. Requires us to kind of shift gear in a way to have speed and scale. That's what I keep saying in these big global supply chain that we're bringing in North America now.
We don't have a lot of time, 30 seconds here.
Yes.
But we have a U.S. trading partner, very important, that is in a sort of a new protectionist mode. The Inflation Reduction Act, its own climate change initiatives, they're really America-focused. Are you confident that you can help Canadian businesses stay in the game with America?
Yes. I'd refer you back to the speech of the President Biden recently. Rarely you've heard a speech of a president that talks so much about North America. And having been at the table in the meetings, there was a sense of togetherness. Mm-hmm. I think that, you know, for me, I always say the big prize to my friends in Washington is how can we innovate more together, to your point? How can we build more together, and how can we sell more together to the rest of the world? Because we have something unique, which is these integrated supply chain. And that is giving us a competitive advantage that we need to keep.
So good to have you here, Minister. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Francois Philippe Champagne is Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. Coming up, trying to solve an old problem, how to turn good ideas into profitable companies. Stay with us.